This video is to try and clarify a few things about the safe area and what happens when you get the pink screen and the blue dots, what to do about them. So I have a little setup here. This yellow represents your backing. The blue represents a quilt top that one row has already been quilted on. The pink is your take-up rail, and then this is your belly bar down here. So when you first turn QCT on and you want to do an edge-to-edge pantograph, the first thing you have to do is set your safe area. So you're moving your needle all the way back and all the way to the left and still be on the backing, and you're setting that as your top left, and you're moving your needle all the way towards you as far as your machine will go and all the way to the right and still be on the backing, and that becomes your bottom right. And as you do that, you've created a height measurement and a width measurement, and that auto fills onto your total width and total height in your pantograph screen. Those measurements will change as you design your pantograph row. Once you hit quilt and go into your quilt screen, your safe area will show up there at the top. What's important, though, is as you design your pantograph row, that your height and width of your design be smaller than what that safe area is. So if you ever get a pink screen, that'll be one of the first things you want to check is any of your height and width measurements. Are any of them bigger than your safe area? Because if they are, you'll need to reduce them down. Okay, so now we're in the quilt screen and we need to quilt this design. So this is what you would be seeing on your screen, the design that you would want to place so that you could quilt it. And for the sake of this example, we're going to use a placement method of 1 point and a fill method of start point. So this will be the start point that we will need to use for where we're going to put our needle when we tell QCT where to start. So if we were to do something crazy and say our start point is right there in the middle, then you would be telling QCT that you wanted the design to quilt like this. Well, as you can see, a big chunk of it goes off the edge, so QCT would quilt this part of it, but when it got to the safe area line, it would do big jump stitches where those blue dots are, and it wouldn't try to stitch the rest of your design. So that's kind of a visual of what happens when you place a design that causes QCT to need to stitch part of it out of your safe area, which it's not going to do. So now that you've quilted this first row, then you're going to be rolling it up on your take-up rail. So here's what happens if you were to roll it so far that when you tell QCT that that's your starting point, you've actually rolled part of the upper design above the top line of your safe area. So you're going to get a pink screen and blue dots across the top. And what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to unroll a little bit of your quilt to get that point down so that all your design will stitch out. Because when you have it rolled up, if you were to go ahead and stitch it, QCT would stitch the lower part that it's able to stitch, but the part that's up above, it would do jump stitches. And also, if you did not roll your quilt top far enough up, then when you were to say this is the point that the stitching should begin, then you would get a pink screen with blue dots across the bottom of your screen, and QCT would be telling you, this is the part I can't stitch for you. I'll stitch this upper part, but the part that goes below that safe area line, I'm going to do jump stitches instead, since I can't stitch that. So you want to pay real close attention to where those blue dots are, because that's telling you where the edge is that QCT can't sew because of that safe area. So another thing to be aware of is as your quilt builds up on the take-up rail and inside the throat of your machine, if you have a long quilt or a thick quilt, then you start diminishing the area, the height that you have available to quilt in. So if you have set a design height that isn't very far off of what that total height is going to be toward the end of your quilt, it can get very tricky getting that exact point. because if you're only, say, 1/4 of an inch or even 1/2 an inch away from what your total height is, then as you start trying to place your design, you don't have much leeway there. You've got to get it really exact. So you may have to unroll and re-roll, just trying to get that that exact point that you're able to place this and it still be within your safe area, that rectangle. So that's what I wanted to point out. And then just to reiterate, if you see blue dots and a pink screen and the blue dots across the top, then you're going to need to unroll part of your quilt. And then if you get a pink screen and you see blue dots across the bottom, then you're going to have to roll your quilt up a little more. So I hope you found this helpful.